All right, what's up, y'all? If you're watching this and you do not know me personally, my name is Jelani Perkins. I have a YouTube called Perks Corner. I have other social medias. Um, I've always wanted to start my own podcast, and this is my first, I guess, amateur attempt at doing so. If enough people listen, or if I get enough support for said podcast, I'll actually start, I guess, making it more official, getting a more official setup, and maybe even a proper mic and everything. But um, I just wanted to try it out and see how it goes. Um, there's a lot of things that I've always wanted to talk about, just constantly over social media, make videos about. Never knew exactly what I wanted to do at the moment. But for some reason, I woke up today and saw a couple of posts on social media, of course. Remembered a couple of conversations I've had with people. I go to a church regularly, and last week was Father's Day, and they had my preacher had a sermon about what it means to be a man, and along with other conversations I had with people yesterday and the days before, leading up to today, I want to talk about, I guess, the idea of masculinity and the idea of being a man and where men kind of sit in society nowadays. It is my first podcast, so me being who I am, I know I can get into pretty controversial topics and say controversial things at times. So I'm gonna try to avoid doing that as much as possible. I'm not trying to get canceled on my first day, but I I tend to get confused sometimes on the, I guess, idea of what people want out of a man, especially in today's society. And I say what people want out of a man. A lot of my influences are from, stemming from the conversation of what women want from men. Um, you know, as a man, especially a straight man myself, of course, that is always going to be something that's on my mind, something that I try to, think of and formulate. What would a woman want from me? What would a woman find attractive or sexy or necessary, for me to be a part of whatever woman that I'm attracted to at the time's life. So when I think of, masculinity, there are a lot of certain things that automatically come to mind. You know, his protectiveness of a household, his work ethic, his ability to grind and make sure that his family and that his own well-being uh, are solidified, and make sure that you have a good foot down in all the things that you're doing, making sure you know how to lead, and how to take control of a situation, how to handle your business physically and financially. Um, all those things that come to mind. You know, any type of handyman work, like knowing how to do certain things around the house, knowing how to work on your car, all these stereotypical things that come to mind. Um, and then I like to break things down further. I like to think about the things that um, people don't necessarily immediately think of when they just hear the word masculinity, because sadly, in today's society, masculinity has, in my opinion, a little too much negativity attached to that specific word. Not saying like there's too much negativity attached to men, but just the word masculinity. I don't think it should be a word that scares people, but it is a word that scares some people, especially in amongst women. You hear the word masculinity, and some people immediately go to toxic things, toxic masculinity, the aggressiveness, over controlling, you know, just to throw out a few. And I think that masculinity and toxic masculinity, of course, are two separate things. Um, Masculinity is just the overall scope of aspects of a man, of what he should be doing as a man. And then, the toxic masculinity is when you take those aspects either too far or you allow it to negatively impact the people around you or even yourself. Um, I think that men are having a harder time with making a balance of that. Um, and not to say that it's, solely women's or men's fault of, you know, that lack of balance, because technically it's on both. I've been in situations where I listen to men talk to other men and the advice that they give and the things that they say. And there's some BS that definitely goes around. There's some BS that gets said, and there's some very bad advice that gets spread. And I've also been in conversations with women talking to men or women talking to other women and just overheard and listened. And there's also aspects that women throw out there that kind of either demean masculinity or really make, what we need to do confusing. It does make it confusing. Prime example, I had a friend of mine who has a female friend, and she first, I want to throw this out. I hate, as a pretext, I hate the word simp. I do. I've heard it used in songs, back in the early 2000s. So it's been a word that's been around a while. It has come to fruition, and people have been starting to use it a lot more constantly over the past few years. I hate that word because what it used to mean, what it used to be, was that when a man was doing too much, when he was throwing things that he needed to do or even his mental health to the wayside to basically impress a girl or to try to make her happy. And I feel like the cutoff between being a gentleman and being a simp is that if what you're doing for this female uh, negatively impacts you either financially or mentally, and you continue to do so just to impress this woman, especially if that woman is giving clear signs that she's not going to give you a chance, to me that is the proper definition of simping. However, you have this female who says a man who loves to take her out on dates, loves to pay for everything, loves to, you know, text her in the morning, text her good night, just make sure she's doing well and asking her how her day is going and everything like that. And this woman calling this man a simp. And to me, that just baffles me because in my eyes, that's being a gentleman. He's not going into financial debt over this chick. He's not, beating himself up or, putting himself in a position to just really not mentally be in a good space. But he's doing what he can to make sure that she's appreciated, that she knows that he's thinking about her, and to ask if there's anything that she needs. And to me, that is the epitome of being a gentleman, especially in like the talking stages of things. And for a woman to sit there and see the efforts of this man, a very good man, and to call him a simp is almost infuriating to me. And this behavior and this mindset is what leads to a lot of men to be confused on what you really want as women. Now, granted, I'm not talking all women. All these examples, no one is going to take these examples, or I hope so. No one's going to take these examples and say, oh, this man Jelani believes that all women, all men act like this. No, no. It's common enough that it has to be addressed, but it's not everyone. And these labels of simp and these claims by these women who have these gentlemen doing what some women would absolutely love for the like men to do for them, and they're just dogging on it and they're stepping on it, and it hurts, even if it's not happening to you, because it hurt me listening to this story. I was like, I was hurting for this guy, and it sucks. And sadly, there's not a lot you can do about it because you can't control what other people do. Um, and back to the masculinity thing, fellas, there's too much bad advice going around. Honestly, just the overall disrespect and disregard for the emotions and mental well-being for women when you're giving out these certain the certain advice of how to treat women, how to talk to women, how to so-called play the game, and you know what, some men and women, actually no, not even some, a lot of men and women are happily playing that game, and they're going back and forth at each other. You know what, it is what it is. You can have it. I'm not going to be a part of this game, as the person I am. But it just happens a lot. And the sad thing is, people get so caught up in the game that when they want out, all the advice that they have gotten, all the things that they have seen and done is in the light of that toxic masculinity and even that toxic feminine energy coming back towards these men, and that's all they know. And it sucks because it's like, once you're ready to settle down, or once you're ready to actually do something with your life with another person, it's so much negative energy that is being expended because that's all you know. And you have not only your peers but the older generation, teaching you stuff that it just shouldn't be repeated. And then it scared me at one time because I used to think, I had so many people, so many older men talk to me, ask me what I would do in this situation, or ask me how I view this situation. And so many older men say after that conversation, you know what, you remind me of me when I was your age, or you remind me of me when I was younger. And I heard that phrase so many times, it actually frightened me. Now, this is back when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old. Like, will I eventually end up like these guys? Because there's too many people saying that they were like me, and then seeing what they were doing now, I didn't want to be a part of that. I think at the end of the day, it's just up to each person. It's up to each person because not everyone's going to react the same. There's going to be a lot of people that react similar, but not the same. And, I kind of got off sidetracked. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the initial topic of masculinity and, just what it means to be a man. And there's, it's 2022. There's a lot of things around, there's not a lot of things around definitions and compartments of what it means to be certain something. There's that whole funny little thing where it's now impossible to define what it is to be a woman, and how you'll ask certain people who have certain views, what is a woman? And people can't answer that. I have my own views on it. I'm not going to go into it. But I really like to look into what it means to be a man. And there was I told you last weekend was Father's Day, and we had a sermon about what it means to be a man. And I posted this on my social media, but I like to say it here on the podcast. There's 3 things that really stood out that I honestly agreed with. First thing is, no man should ever sacrifice their masculinity to conform to any ideal or what society, wants you to conform to. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your masculinity for that. You don't have to be anti-woman to be pro-man, and you don't have to be anti-man to be pro-woman. Because at the end of the day, just like my pastor said, at one point in time, a man will need a woman and a woman will need a man. We weren't made on this earth to be without the other. It's just how it is. You know, these guys walking around, talking about F these women and F that, and I'd rather just be running the streets playing these games my whole life. It's not how it goes. Like, you're going to need that woman. And for the women that talk about, I don't need no man, I'm completely independent, I don't need no man in my life, you will eventually need a man in your life, because women and men are two different species. And I mean that figuratively, of course. There's things that women will be able to do that men cannot do. There are going to be things that men can do that women cannot do. And do not take this the wrong way, because I don't want anybody thinking, oh, he's saying that women, can't, like, basically can't do anything a man can do. They can't have a certain job or can't do a certain thing. I'm just saying, when it comes to efficiency and running a household and having a family, there's going to be roles that men naturally do better than women. There's going to be roles that women naturally do better than men. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing to say. And sadly, a lot of people get stuck when they hear those phrases. They think overly traditional when they hear those phrases. If someone says there's things that women can't do that a man can do, they immediately go to, back in, when it was just always publicly known or publicly made that, oh, women aren't as strong as men, or women can't do the same jobs as men, or blah, 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 like back in those stigma times, because I don't want that message to come off. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there's a role to play. And it's just like in anything, say basketball, for instance. There's going to be, there's going to be roles that cannot be played by certain people. You're not going to see Shaq try to bring the ball up the court every possession, because he cannot play that role. But you're not going to see someone like AI post somebody up and try to dunk on everybody that he sees, because he cannot do that. And yes, there are exceptions. There are certain things where you have people like Magic Johnson, who played that point guard position, but he was so tall and lanky, and yeah, he passed first, but if he wanted to, he could use his physicality to be more of a forward, which is what his size, what you typically see for his size, but he was a point guard. There are always exceptions. Nothing is ever concrete. It has to be this way, But there are just natural roles that are, met for men and women. And when it comes together and when those roles are accepted, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. And, not to say that, the best household is one where a woman stays home and, raises the kids and takes care of the home, and the man does all the work. But there's a balance. And, off of that, I like to address something else that I think is a lot of people kind of get hypocritical with. And what I've noticed, especially the female community, there is like this thing where women be like, what happened to the traditional man? Or why can't men be traditional like they used to be? Or stuff like that. And, it's been said in plenty of other podcasts, plenty of other videos. The era of the traditional woman is dwindling. You're seeing less of that. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. However, you cannot be a completely non-traditional woman and demand a traditional man, because that household will not work. You have to find a balance. If you're not going to be a traditional woman, that's fine. But do not demand that whatever man you be with be completely traditional, because you will butt heads. There will be a disconnect. And you have to break down what kind of person you are. You have to kind of just assess Are you traditional? Are you not traditional? Are you in between? Is there certain aspects of being traditional that you do hold within yourself? And is there certain aspects of otherwise? And then you just got to search for that person that complements you. But don't try to force someone else to be what you envision, especially when what you envision of being with is not compatible with who you really are. Because I've been in that situation. I have been in that position where I had an ex who wanted me to be that perfectly traditional man. She wanted me to be that biblically traditional man. However, she was not the biblically traditional woman. She was not. And her mindset was not. And the things that she did and the things that she sought after was not. And you know what? Perfectly fine. However, we didn't work out. Now, not necessarily just because of that. There was a lot of other things. But granted, if we never found a balance in that, even if we didn't have the issues that led to the breakup, it wouldn't have been a very balanced household, at least for like the long run. And is that's what it's all about, really. It's all about balance. Same thing with masculinity. There are mindsets that I feel like we should have as a man. There's certain things that we should do as men to take care of not only ourselves but our household, our women, our children, or whatever. And there's a level that it should not go past, because that's when it becomes toxic. There's a ceiling. There's a toxic ceiling. Masculinity has a high ceiling to go to, but once you take it to a certain level, it becomes toxic. For example, being protective over your woman, being able to protect yourself and her is a very masculine thing. I think it's a great thing. If you're out in public and someone, okay, I'll say it like this. Here's the type of person I am. If I'm out in public with my woman, because of the man I am and because of how I grew up and because of the things that I went through when I was younger, I will tell you right now, if you're a stranger and you mean nothing to me, whatever comes out your mouth verbally has no weight to me. It does not bother me. I don't care what you say at all. Now, some people, some men and women might look at that and say, oh, you gonna let him say whatever he wants to say? Or let whoever say whatever they want to say? Yeah, because at the end of the day, what does it matter? What does it matter what they're saying? I don't care what words come out your mouth. Unless I know you and unless you're close to my life, your words mean nothing to me. I don't care what you're saying it to. I don't care what you're saying it about. You can be a complete stranger on the street and say, like something real disrespectful, like your mother's a hoe, and she be around the street. I will look at you, I will laugh, and I'll be like, okay, like, you don't know my mom, I don't know you. That's just random words. If you physically put your hands on me or my woman while we're out, I'll be the first one to say I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Never been a fighter. However, I'm also no punk. So I might get my ass beat, but I'm gonna at least stand up for you. That's all I gotta say. I will stand up for you. If someone puts their hands on me or my woman or anyone I care about for that matter while we're out and about, then I will retaliate. I will stand up for me and my people. And I will do my best to make sure that people realize that we're not the people to be messed with. And I'm not the one to be messed with. Now, I feel like that in just for me, that is my level of masculinity when it comes to protectiveness. Now, where it becomes toxic, that ceiling that you hit, say we're out and about and, my lady's looking fine, as she always is. I'm walking around and I see someone checking her out and just looks her up and down and looks away. If I come up behind him and steal off on him because I don't want nobody looking at my woman, or that's where that protectiveness gets to be toxic level, because there's no reason for that. And first of all, if you got, I would feel good having a woman that other people like see and be like, dang, she looks good, and like checks her out, because I know she looks good, and that's my woman. So like, to me, that's actually a compliment. Like, my woman being checked out by other people, as long as you don't put your hands on her, me, whatever, don't approach disrespect, we all good. I don't care. But there are some people like that where, I saw you checking out my woman, and like, I'm coming after you. I had a friend who, not, and this wasn't even his fault. He was just in his car, top down, stunting on people. Of course, didn't mean to be, but he just is. And some girls come up to him and start conversation. He didn't, look at nobody. He didn't come after nobody, but girls come up to him. Next thing you know, their guys come around the corner and trying to start a fight. Like, to me, I feel like that's toxic, because first of all, you saw your woman go up, like I said, come around the corner. They were still in the vicinity. Like, they saw what happened. They were there. So it's not like, oh, they thought that he just, drove up next to him and started talking. No, they saw them go up to him and start conversation. And then they start getting mad and trying to pick a fight with him. And it's just like, yo, like, to me, that's toxic. Because if your woman's going to go out to some random dude and start talking, that's not on him. That's not on him. That's an issue that you need to talk out with, the girl that you with. And there's just a lot of things that I believe get taken too far. And, I don't want to make this podcast run too long, especially not for my first one. But it's just certain things when it comes to just manhood in general. And there's a lot of issues. And this is a very broad topic. I can make a freaking 5 hour, 6 hour, 10-hour podcast about just this topic in general. But I just want to bring attention to some of the things that come out people's mouths, and some of the things that get made prevalent when it comes to masculinity and being a man, and just how confusing it can be for us men. And it becomes less confusing when you find a woman who knows what she wants, who makes it clear what she wants, and complements your balance. But until then, I want to ask women to be patient with men. And I want to ask men to be patient with women, especially if both sides are willing to at least sit down and think about what's going on. Now, there's going to be some people you can't reach. There's going to be some people that are just so stuck in their ways or so stuck in their mindset that no matter how much you break it down and explain it to them, they're not going to budge. And that's the type of people you need to leave alone. Unless they already compliment you, just leave them alone, move on, go to the next. But I just want to ask you guys to be patient with each other. And one last thing I do want to say that bounce off of that patience is that I've had people say, I shouldn't have to teach you how to love me. And I think that's absolutely false. Because every person is different. Every person's love language is different. How they act is different. What they think is proper in a relationship is different. Versions of cheating, like one person cheating can even be just looking a girl up and down, and another person, it's not cheating unless you actually have like sex with a different person. It's all different interpretations, all different combinations of ideals, morals, and people. So just be patient with each other, break things down, be honest, be vocal, communicate. Just tell somebody who you are and how you feel about things. But yeah, I'll just end it on that note. If you enjoyed it, I guess just make a comment and see if you'd like another podcast, if you'd like a podcast on another topic, or just a continuation of this one. Because like I said, I can go all day about this one. But yeah, I thank you guys for listening for my first ever podcast, and we'll see what happens.